Call to order this regular session of the Mayor and City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m. this Wednesday, April 4th, 2018 at City Hall Complex Council Chambers. And would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And we're going to go ahead. Mr. Maldonado, would you lead? Sure.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you may be seated. We didn't have to give the invocation tonight, but we'll take the Lord's blessings today, and everybody in your own way ask for the blessing. Thank you.
Mayor, can I have just a point of privilege here after the invocation? I'd just like to have the mayor, if we could have a moment of silence to remember the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King, who was an apostle of peace, and let us never forget what he said so famously throughout the world. If we don't learn to live together as brothers and sisters, we will perish as fools. So I just ask for a moment of silence to remember the wonderful work Dr. King did throughout his life.
Would you like us to rise on that?
No,
that's fine. Okay, we're going to go ahead and have a moment of peace for Martin Luther King, valiant efforts and his work that he did. So, can you please just take a few seconds here and honor him. Okay, amen. Thank you. We have call to the public, and we have Mr. Luis Parra. We'd like to say a few words here to us. Just state your name and address.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members of this honorable council. My name is Luis Fernando Parra, and I am my address is 571 North Anza Drive, and I want to commend Dr. Marcelino Varona for having remembered the death of Martin Luther King Jr. I think this is a very important day for our country, and I'm glad that we had a moment of silence in his memory. I want to add another quote as well, it says, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Martin Luther King Jr. So I also would like to quote our President, Abraham Lincoln, when he stated that the legitimate object of government is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done, but cannot do at all in their separate and individual capacities. Over the years, I've thought long and hard about this quote that our great emancipator left to us, and I've thought long and hard about what he meant to convey. Knowing that President Lincoln was a very practical man, he probably meant that governments should help their communities when individual members of that community need help to move things forward. So I thought I'd share both of those quotes. Thank you very much for indulging me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parra, for those comments. And we also have on a speaker form, Mrs. Ariel Ziont.
Hi, my name is Ariel Zients, and I live on Crawford Street, and I'm just speaking for myself today. I just wanted to encourage the council to hold the study session on the water issue and utilities rates. My bill went up $20 last month, and my paycheck did not go up $20, so that was a really big surprise. I do not use a lot of water. I live by myself and with a cat, and I am very conscious about water. I turn off the water when I get my toothbrush wet, brush my teeth. I turn it off. I don't let it run. My landlord said there's no issues with leaks or anything. So I looked at old stories we did at the paper before I worked there, and I guess that there's serious infrastructure needs, and I get that. But it would be maybe nice to just remind the public what those issues are with why you need to raise the rates, because I guess you need to pay for investments in crumbling pipes and things, which is really important. But just maybe explain why again. And when you do increase them, maybe slow it down. Don't let it go above the average rate, because we're a low-income community, and I just think about the people who make less money than I do and what this impact will be to them. And just when you have the study session, see if just see if you can slow it down. Make sure the rates don't go above average. I think they should be below average, since it's a below average income community. And just see if there's any way you can mitigate the need to raise utility rates through grants or cutting expenses that aren't necessary in the budget that you have, because these are clearly, it seems like they're necessary, but if you could just take it away from the ratepayers and use grants or money from somewhere else. So just my request is to please hold a study session and look at those issues.
Thank you so much, Ms. Zients. It's good to somebody who comes and mentions the water rates, because we do get some calls about it, and it's good to bring it up. And we're going to be having a study session down the road. We're going to cover all that. Thank you. Seeing these were the only two calls to the public. To the clerk. And we're going to continue. Again, we have a public hearing for extension of the alternative expenditure limitation, also known as the home rule. And I think that's going to be on staff to cover, or Dr. Felix? Were you going to shine some light on the home rule? I'm sorry. The home rule. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of the public hearing is to allow community members to come forward and ask any questions they may have regarding home rule. We are required by law to have these public hearings. So there's the one we're having now, and then there'll be a second one in May, and then we will propose or submit for your approval the order to put the home rule on the ballot in August. So really, this is just an opportunity for the community to come forward and ask any questions or concerns they may have regarding home rule. We as the city are not allowed to encourage or discourage anyone regarding home rule. We're just allowed to provide information and education.
Thank you. Yes, we have Councilman Lucero.
Yes, Mayor. Just for clarification to the community, if we don't have home rule, then who sets our budget cap?
The state does.
And ordinarily the state's forecasts are very conservative, so they would severely limit our ability to spend despite whatever revenue we do bring in. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we would be looking at about 50% reduction in operational expenditures.
15 or 50?
50.
50. So what is that in numbers?
So our current budget that has been submitted for your review. The budget is 30-some million. I don't remember the number right now, I'm sorry. But if home rule were to not pass, that would be reduced to about 19 million.
And that's for 2 years?
So if home rule were to fail, we would have to wait 2 years, and then we could submit it again for community approval, or for voter approval.
The rest of the funding, or does that happen, the funding that's in there, does the state freeze it, keep it, or what?
No, we would still collect the revenues, we just wouldn't be allowed to spend them.
So they would earn interest and everything else as far as, I mean, they wouldn't use our funds.
No, they would not, but our operations would be severely impacted if home rule were to fail.
You'd be looking at staff reductions and
Yes.
dropping off services citywide, and so it would be very, very bad.
Right, because general fund, which is the fund that covers police, fire, your parks, library, that budget alone is 23 million for operations. Plus you've got your enterprise funds, water, sewer, sanitation, which is another 10 million.
Councilman.
Just a question for legal. As elected officials, can mayor and council speak in favor or against home
Yes,
rule?
absolutely, Mr. Mayor and Councilman Verona, no, I'm sorry, Councilman Lucero.
Don't confuse me with him.
Mr. Massey, that's grounds for termination. You get 2 votes, right?
The prohibition that the finance director mentioned was the prohibition on the use of public monies, and including public time and public resources. So the city itself cannot expend public resources. Private individuals have a First Amendment right to lobby the voters. For example, we will have a voter education packet that comes out prior to every election, and this particular question will be on the ballot, so it will be part of the voter education material. And so private individuals, including council members, can submit arguments for or against this proposition, just like you could on any proposition. And that would not be expending public funds. And you can certainly do anything you want on your own time. That would be protected First Amendment activity.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Vice Mayor.
but shouldn't we give the public a presentation, information? Maybe they have questions and they've heard about the home rule, but they really don't know where to jump in on what to ask. I mean, we can't ask the public if they have any questions on the home rule if they don't have the information. I think a presentation should have been given, some information. That way it enlightens them, and then they know where to jump in. Other than that, they're just hearing bits and pieces on it.
It would certainly be permissible to do that at the next public hearing, to have a staff presentation where we fully go through the history of home rule, the Arizona constitutional amendment that created the need for home rule, and Nogales voters have consistently approved home rule every 4 years. And so I think there is a certain baseline, but we can, it would be permissible to do that at the next public hearing.
Absolutely.
Which would be giving the pros and cons.
Right. And
Making it a fair,
right.
at least it's the public that decides, really. We can join in how we look at it, but overall.
And the more informed they are, the better decision they can make and vote on this.
And also, once we have the 2 public hearings and council approves, mayor and council approves to go ahead and move forward with this, we will publish in the newspaper the documents that we have to submit to the Attorney General for
Auditor General.
Auditor General, sorry, yes, Auditor General.
Yes, Councilman Morona.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, here in this audience, we have a captive audience.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're going to be successful to get out any misconceptions or anything, we have to go out into the public, into the civic organizations. Mr. Maldonado has the best audience he has every night with all the Little League parents. He should be out there with flyers, convincing people there. Maybe we can go out there and help him and do that. He can do that. I mean, if we could go out, as long as it's on his own time, and we're not, the flyers aren't paid for by the city.
Correct.
He can do that.
Anyone can do that.
So we should go out, like if I'm in the Lions Club, go out to the Lions Club and help explain it. They're not going to come here, okay? We need to go out to them and get it done.
And I believe that once, again, we receive your approval, then we can move forward and start holding those sessions at the schools and as you said, at organizations when they have their meetings. I think at this point, are we allowed to, Mr. Massey?
On your own time.
On our own time, but again, I guess we, as far as providing any information, don't we have to first wait for Mayor and Council to approve the order and that there will?
I think that would probably be best, but I'm not sure that that's absolutely required. We're going to have another public hearing next month's meeting, so we can certainly have materials available and prepared by that time.
And it's in the general election, correct? Not the primary.
Well, I think there's a choice that the council can choose whether to put it on the primary or general.
Oh, we haven't made that decision.
Right,
Okay.
we have not made that decision. And there's time to put it on the primary, but there's pros and cons both ways.
Right.
Last time I was in the primary, the last election.
Okay. Yeah, well, then if we're going to do it in the primary, it's extremely crucial that we get out to the people immediately. If we're going to do it in the general, then we have some leeway for it.
So 2 years ago, it was done in the.
4 years ago.
4 years ago, it was done in the primaries.
Yes, sir.
Right. It is, Mr. Mayor. It is important to note that the city of Tucson, in one of their ballots, they did not pass the home rule, and it set the city of Tucson back at least 20 years, and they're still suffering from what happened then. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm sure every city that loses the home rule will suffer again 10 to 20 years. Put them back that far back. City of Nogales would go back probably 25 years, but something like that didn't pass.
Any other comments? Okay. Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Arias, for that update. And then we go to we have a presentation, an update by the Santa Cruz County Flood Control District.
Thank you. Mayor Doyle, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to present. This presentation is an update on the flood control projects that are in the city of Nogales. We highlighted three projects that I think will have a very good chance of being constructed. During the presentation, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Ask away, please. The format of the presentation is we're going to give you a project status and an overview, and then we'll give you a flood control districts, our revenues and our commitments, see what type of money we get, and what are our commitments when it comes to spending, and how we want to proceed, how we want to move forward. The first two projects I'm going to present, and the last one John is, and he's going to talk a little bit of the projects that are not being highlighted. Project number one, the first project is Fossa Basin. Right now, we completed the feasibility study. In the feasibility study, we looked at, was it possible to construct a basin in this area? Just for, if you see that area, the light blue, that's the area where prior there was a quarry. So we took a look at it and thought it would be a perfect area to make use of that quarry.
Jesus, can you get a smaller font? Because we can't even see this one, so maybe if you make it smaller, we wouldn't even notice that you put something up there.
I'm going to try. Sorry. Getting back, so we found from the feasibility study, we were able to determine that we can do the project. Right now we have 30% plans. Another thing that we did is that we look at the material and we qualified it. We did the NEPA studies, so a contractor could be able to utilize that material in any of the ADOT projects. Right now, the next step is the land acquisition. The appraisal is underway. Final construction is to be determined. It all depends on how we proceed with the land acquisition. So the project potential is that we'll remove 37 parcels from the floodplain, 17 commercial buildings, and 33 structures. Like I said before, the borrow material could be possibly used for one of the projects, and one of them is SR 189.
Could that be considered a local match to reduce our contribution or the county's contribution?
I believe that it can. The challenges is the land acquisition. We approached the two owners of the parcels. They're aware of what we're doing. They give us permission to go in there and do some investigations. So that's a hurdle. And depending on how we're able to acquire these parcels, that's going to affect the cost. If a contractor was able to go in there, remove the material, then we would have a basin constructed, and we would have to do some minor improvements. Before I move on to the next project, any questions?
Is there a cost estimate right now for what you have with 30%?
Right now, we're looking at $10 to $15 million project.
Was that again?
10 to 15 million.
Just a question on the Mariposa Basin. What does that affect exactly? You were showing us the property over there, but what exactly does that affect?
Go to the next slide.
Yeah.
The blue is the existing, and it comes right, all that floodplain connects all the way to Nogales Wash. And it's that wash that goes by the high school through our county complex. The red is the new floodplain. It would be in channel.
So what it affects right now is the blue or the light blue?
Both. No, you're not seeing the whole floodplain. I apologize for not putting it up there. The light blue that you see right now, that would be the new floodplain, because that's where that's
where the water would go.
That's the basins. But the whole swath, the whole dark blue that goes all the way to the Nogales Wash, that floodplain would be removed, and the new floodplain would be whatever would be in the channel. So the channel would go from here and back of Industrial Park area, through the high school, through the county complex, all the way to Nogales Wash. So all those properties potentially could be removed from the floodplain.
Mr. Mayor? Yes. Mr. Hayes, how much would that save if we remove these properties from the floodplain? How much money would that save the property owner?
Dr. Verona, members of the council, kind of hard to put that into perspective without knowing exactly how many of those actually have to have flood insurance, but ballparking it, we've seen some of the commercial properties coming in with quotes for flood insurance of anywhere from $10,000 to $60,000 a year. The commercial, or the residential structures, which are basically trailers, would probably be on the order of about $2,000 on average, ballparking it, so you're probably looking in the neighborhood of a little over $60,000 or close to $70,000 with a year with the residential structures, assuming all of them had to have flood insurance. And with the commercial structures, you're probably looking at somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000.
Thank you, Mr.
Just a question, Mr. Hayes, when was the last time the area flooded?
Mr. Newbar, members of the council, to the best of my recollection, the last time that area saw any significant flooding would have been back in the 70s. That's my understanding of the last time it has actually flooded. I know that in the area of La Quinta, which is the large area of blue right there, because that's near La Quinta. Trying to talk. This area here is La Quinta, coming through down here off of Mariposa, so you have the Border Patrol facility is right there. That area does routinely flood during the monsoon season when we get a particularly heavy rainstorm in the area. It's not uncommon for La Quinta to have anywhere from 6 inches to a foot of water on it from time to time due to the runoff issues in the area. So that area does see it, but we have not seen the flows downstream impacting the areas. But there is definitely a local problem in that area.
The other question I have is during those flooding periods and even back in the 70s, is there any figures on structural damage, or is it just mostly the asphalt, or what is the damage?
Unfortunately, I have never been able to find any records in terms of what those damages were from the floods in the 70s or the 60s, so unfortunately I cannot say what Mr. Mayor.
How about the recent flooding? Is there any damage that causes, or just water flowing that overflows? Or
thankfully, the recent flooding has not caused any damages, at least along Mariposa Road, to any of the structures. There's been some minor damages to the road. I know that La Quinta has had to have several major potholes that have developed after flooding filled in, but I'm not aware of what the city expended to correct that situation. But assuming they're fixing a road up normal, it's probably $100,000 a pop when you're fixing that road, having to at least fill in all the potholes. And if you resurface it, you're probably, I would hazard to guess, anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million if you have to do a complete resurfacing on it.
We have Councilman Lucero.
Thank you, Mayor. And the real benefit, besides the reduction in flood insurance, is being in the floodplain has definite restrictions on building and development. And I noticed that the next slide is going to deal with the downtown area, but specific to this area, could one of you elaborate on, by removing this area from the floodplain, does that allow that area does it increase its ability to develop that property, or the property that is currently in the floodplain?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Lucero, it definitely does. Not only does it help undeveloped parcels to construct, but it gives an opportunity for existing structures to go above that 50% mark that limits a lot of the remodeling or reconstruction of some of these warehouses and some of these buildings.
I bring that up because you're going to bring that up when you start talking about the downtown area, right?
Perfect segue. This project we're calling the Downtown Nogales Floodplain Reduction Study. We broke it down to 4 phases. The first phase was the hydrology feasibility. So before we jumped into the project, we want to make sure that we could study it and do a good job, or just have an impact. Where we're going to make things worse or reduce the flow, or just to do an overall investigation to see if it was beneficial to go ahead with the study. So far we completed 2 phases. Well, we've completed 1 phase and half of the other one. The hydraulic feasibility, what it told us is that there's a potential to reduce the flow by 25%. Right now there's 13,500. We estimate, and 60% is going in the tunnels. So that means we could reduce it by 9,000 CFS. That's a big amount. If you can't tell by my face, I'm excited, because that means that if right now 60% of the flow is going through the tunnels, it's about 8,000 CFS going through there. So you can overland 4,000 currently flowing based on the models or the statistics. So it would reduce to 2,000. That could have what that could lead to is minor type of projects flood-proofing some of the buildings downtown, expanding some of the drains that are in there.
Just can you simplify it a little bit more when you start talking CFS? What does that mean, just so everyone knows what you're talking about? We're not all engineers, so
Okay.
just in terms of volume,
Sure.
if you can make a simple
Councilman
comparison.
Lucero, basically the easiest way to think about it is one CFS is 1 cubic foot. 1 cubic foot is essentially equivalent to 1 basketball. So if you want to just convert it into the number of basketballs per second.
Perfect, thank you.
It's not a basketball. We want to also inform you that we do have a scan of the tunnel. So if you guys have any need for it, it's available. To just go over the one more time, the project potentials, the analysis of the tunnels could correctly define the amount of the surface flow versus tunnel flow. It could be more. It could be more flows going through the tunnels right now. So with the second phase, we'll be able to let you guys know if that's the case. The challenges could be the capacity of the channel, the age of it, and the stability. Some of those portions of the tunnel may need reconstruction. The other thing that could affect the remapping or the flow is the continued growth in Nogales.
Can I ask a question there, Jesus?
Yes, sir.
On Nogales, Sonora, continued growth, did they also take into account the programs they're starting to put in place, like rain harvesting and redirecting flow and different things? I don't know if there's any retention basins over there, but they take all that into account?
That would be in one of the phases, the next phases that will be done. But right now, it's just taking a look at the whole area and see what the volume is and what the possible reduction is. So that's going to be in one of the phases.
So all this is basically engineering. So what's the cost?
It's hard to say right now. It's hard to say because it could be an expansion of Nogales Wash, and that's millions of dollars. It could be as simple as flood-proofing some of the buildings, which is a couple $1,000.
I guess what I'm just asking is the analysis is being done. What's the cost to do that? From once that's completed, then you'll come up with.
The total project for the analysis and the design that comes out of it is about $300,000.
But it has the potential to identify substantially high price items to.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Councilman.
Is there work John, has any work being done with like Nogales, Sonora? Is to see if they're doing anything to remedy the flow of water coming into the United States?
That's going to be one of the phases that we look at.
But have they done anything? Several years back, I know I went across the line and they showed me little retention ponds that they had put in throughout the area. I don't know if they really helped or not. Or
they helped for a few floods, but what happened is that it got silted in and no longer affected. In some cases, people actually built structures in there and are living in these filled-in areas.
Now they have one huge retention basin over there off, what is it, off Hermosillo at the very end there. Yeah, off Tecnológico. Yeah. Have you been over to see that?
I have not been down there to see it. That helps a little bit, but with all the pavement that's on there, there's no infiltration going in the ground, so it's going to be very little, and especially where that basin's at, it has very little effect on it.
Yes, Councilman.
Mr. Hayes, there was one time we had a discussion on the border fence there on the flooding, that there's a possibility that whole fence would come down during the flooding?
Yes, sir, Dr. Verona, members of the council. That is always a possibility. We have seen sections of the border fence in the past collapse, most notably the section there by the Mariposa Port of Entry has collapsed in my tenure. I've known of at least 3 different events where that fence has collapsed due to the debris building up and creating a dam out of the fence and the fence collapsing. I remember back in I think it was the 2003 or 2004 event where the water was coming down through downtown and just barely got into most of the buildings along Morley, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches deep. There was actually video and photography some people had shot and shared with us that showed water coming under that fence there near International Street and bubbling up 3 or 4 feet, and it pushed one of the sidewalks over, or sidewalk panels out of the way. So the possibility of that water coming under that structure, building up enough material on it, that's always a possibility that a large enough event, that whole fence could come down.
So this dialogue that's happening countrywide, would it be to our benefit if a wall was built there? Would that help us?
Hypothetically speaking, if the wall was designed to be able to withstand the types of forces that you could expect from a buildup of 15 to 20 feet of water, plus all the debris, maybe. But you know, the problem will be is that if you build something like that, you are definitely going to be impacting the properties across the line and flooding them even worse.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other questions or comments? Not, go ahead.
This one? I think we've got the next one.
So the next project is what we've been calling the Ephram Basin. This is a large retention-detention basin there behind the hospital between I-19 and the Mariposa Port of Entry. It's an area that's, because it's canyonized, it's very well suited to creating a basin there to capture, contain the water, and then let it out at a much slower rate. So far we've done the design work for this. We will need to do a Clomar-Lomar once we get through it. We've got about 30% plans for 2 different designs on how to approach the basin. Those come out of the fact that the Arizona Department of Water Resources Dam Safety Section has some concerns about the issue and how the dam safety laws would apply to it. And so we came up with 2 different designs. We are actively working with ADWR to try to get the cheaper of the 2 designs done so that we can proceed with the project. Potential on the project, at a minimum, it would remove approximately 171 properties from the floodplain, completely remove them, and at least 230 structures would be completely removed from the floodplain. Again, like the Mariposa project, this would completely channelize the 100-year event along Western Avenue to the actual channel until about Challenger Elementary School, I'm sorry, A.J. Mitchell Elementary School, where because of the way one of the street crossings is and how the channel narrows down, the water might come out. And there's also some consideration for the federal government and how they want us to calculate the flows in that section. Some of the other challenges we have with it will also be the land acquisition issues with it, because realistically for that project to actually affect the maps, we have to own it. We being the public, we have to own and maintain it. That's a federal requirement in the country. The cost of the project ranges anywhere from about $5 million at the low end to $15 million at the high end. And also the potential for development in Mexico, because that watershed, the Ephram Canyon watershed in Mexico, is, for all intents and purposes, completely undeveloped right now. And so we're basing things on an undeveloped condition. If that ever develops, that could cause some issues with the ability of the basin to provide protection. However, our design is centered on the idea of the spillways on the basin not becoming active until the basin has been hit by a 500-year flood event. So something of much greater magnitude than the 100-year event, which is what the mapping is actually based on. Down arrow. So basically, to highlight where the project is, this is where Holy Cross Hospital is located right now. Here is I-19 coming through the Mariposa Port of Entry. This area back in here would be where the basin would be configured. The light blue that's showing up right there is if we have to do the below ground version, which would get us around the dam safety issues. But it would basically take this entire blue area that you see here down to just about the old Bank of Tucson building and channelize it for the most part to the channel running along Western Avenue. Yes, sir.
With this project, is there also potential to use that material to offset the 189?
Hypothetically speaking, I do believe that could be a possibility. We do own a portion of that property already. The county does, but it's a fairly small. We're actually, for something I'll be talking about in just a moment, we're actually doing a title search on to try to nail down, because when we pulled up the deeds, we have about 3 or 4 different descriptions of what the property boundaries are, so we have to get that nailed down. The only sticking point in that area is there is an old shooting range down there, and we've been trying to avoid that with the project to make sure that we don't have to deal with those issues, but I don't know how that would affect the NEPA process to qualify it, but I don't see why it could not potentially be done.
Good price for lead right now.
Any other questions or comments?
No, just Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hayes. These 3 projects, did you prioritize them? Is there something, or are they all, you're just dealing with them in the same motion?
The first 2, the ones that I talked to and presented about, there's a need downtown, so that it was almost a no-brainer. The bang for the buck, it makes a lot of sense to look at that one. The Mariposa Basin, just the material alone, we could have a project almost for free. The Ephram Canyon, the basin, we looked at it. We're at, what I said, 30% plans, but we're taking a step back and coming up with an interim solution at your request. That's the only reason. That's not the only reason. Those are 3 projects that are highlighted. One is because there's interest in the city, downtown. The other one is for the project, and then at your request, we looked at the effort. John will go over the rest of the projects that we're working on in the city, but these are going a little bit forward more. We're actually actively working on them, investing money, and the board's behind all these projects.
Okay, good. The board being the Board of Supervisors?
The Board of Supervisors.
When you say his request, what is that? When you're saying his request, are you saying that Dr. Barona made a request and you're acting on his request?
Mr. Barona has engaged us in a couple of conversations, and he wanted us to take a look at at an interim solution when it came to Ephram County.
That's my neighborhood. And when that area is flooded on Western Avenue, and you have to go by ambulance, you're not going to go through Western Avenue. You're going to have to go all the way around and get onto the freeway to get to the hospital. The people in that area have been neglected. There's been a lot of flooding there, a lot of destruction of property, and I will do everything I can to push for that project there.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Settle, if council wants to see something else, we're open to it.
So, Mayor.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
So the flood control district meets regularly on a monthly basis?
The first meeting of the month.
And how often does the city participate in?
You have a running total?
I do not have a running total, but I would say on average there's somebody from the city at the meetings, Councilman Lucero, probably every 3rd or 4th meeting.
And do we actively engage and present projects, or or make requests, or do we do, I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea of what
There
the
are
city is doing.
occasional requests made for assistance. Otherwise, it's just a general report on the activities that the city has been engaged in.
So we as a council should probably take a more active role on addressing what the county is doing in the flood control. I mean, I don't think we've given staff direction on for example, the Ephram Canyon project.
Yes, and I think, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Carl.
I concur with Mr. Lucero, but we should probably give staff, not staff, but the city manager the direction so that he can have the staff go over there to the Board of Supervisors meeting and be telling them, hey, these are concerns, these are the projects. I would prefer that the city manager go to the Board of Supervisors meeting when they serve as a flood control district than me having to go over there and tell them, hey, there's a problem in my neighborhood and that. But I concur with that. I think that there'd be more consistency there.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Who's attending from the city?
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, generally speaking, it is the city engineer who's attending. So it'd be Mr. Juan Guerrero.
Thank you.
Guerrero, sorry.
Councilman Lucero.
Thank you, Mayor.
I guess now to the crux of the whole presentation here. There's two major capital projects, both range in the $10 to $15 million range. Does the flood control district have the capacity to take on either one of those two projects?
Skip to the next couple pages down.
Well, if you want to just go through your budget, maybe that'll cover the question.
Well, we could look at this. The taxes collected in fiscal year 17 were a little bit over $2 million. The employee salary is $520,000. For operations, that includes even what we do for the city. Our studies is $427,000. Our debt service for this upcoming fiscal year is $637,000. And then the rest goes to reserves, which is $636,000. So if we were to do a project of $10 million based on the reserves, it would take us quite a bit of time. So this is a perfect time to come together, look at other alternatives, and how to construct some of these projects.
I guess my question might be to Dr. Felix and maybe getting together with the county manager. Is there any other funding that we could, grant money or funding that we could get to help on these projects?
There is funding. There's a disaster mitigation funds that we can use, but it requires a 25% match. Some of these projects, so if you just do the quick math, it's $2.5 million. They're very competitive, and you compete statewide, so they're difficult to receive. Probably a better way to do it is just.
Mayor,
yes, we have. Go ahead.
Mayor, if I may ask, do you have bonding capacity?
The county currently does not have bonding capacity.
The flood control district does not have.
I don't know all the rules, but I think when it comes to the capacity for the county to bond, it's all based on general fund.
Who's the boss?
Welcome.
Good evening. Jennifer St. John, County Manager for Santa Cruz County. The county does not have bonding capacity within the flood control district. And in addition, just so the council's aware, the secondary property tax that collects flood control is maxed out. So it can only be 20% of the primary property tax. And so there is also a limit there. So there's not an ability to raise more money should we as a group desire that we want to.
Okay. Councilman Lucero,
I've got a lot of questions.
I'm going to call you Dr. Verona if you get
to.
Keep talking.
So that $427,000 for operation, that's the countywide, including the city. Is that correct?
Correct.
So your estimation of that 427, what percentage of that is actually being spent in the city?
If we presented all the projects, and these are the other projects we're working in the city, the only one that we're actively doing in the county is the last one, and it also involves the city. So design-wise, engineering-wise, yeah, it's more than 50%.
So more than 50% of that 427 is being allocated to the city.
Yes, sir.
And how much revenue is generated by the property owners from the city of Nogales?
The last time we looked at it was 700,000.
Okay. So then the next question is, a good chunk of that is going towards debt service. What is that for?
That's money that the county borrowed.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to say that though.
I know the answer.
I
know why he's asking this question.
That's when the county went out to bond. I don't know if I remember the year, but roughly 2008 or so, for Palo Parado and Chula Vista projects. So 2 major projects.
So roughly the amount of debt service going to cover that bridge project is equivalent to the amount that's being collected from the city of Nogales?
You could say that, Councilman Lucero.
Okay. So right now, would it be possible to reduce that amount of debt coverage? Is there any way to free up flood control dollars?
We did a refinancing. We've actually done 2 refinancings on that, but you know, it hasn't saved a significant amount, but it's saved maybe 20,000 a year or so.
I guess the question I'm asking, could HERF be used to offset some of that debt service?
No, sir. No. I mean, my attorney's not here, but I would say no.
Well, I guess the question I'm asking is, it's a bridge project, but the bridge it's for a road, so the road has some aspect of it. So could the approaches, the surface, could that portion of that debt be covered by HERF?
I'm not sure that it could, Mr. Lucero, in part because the enabling legislation that allowed the county to build, especially Palo Parado, made it clear that the funding had to be coming out of the flood control district, because it was legislation to allow communities to build a bridge over a road that was impassable for a total of 14 days out of the year due to flooding. And so it gave the authority to the flood control districts for that money.
That's really a legal question, though, and no one's. Some attorney can look into that for us.
I think both the sides would have to look into that.
Okay, but there'd be a possibility if you can use HERF to offset some of that debt service, could free up flood control dollars. It could be reallocated to the city.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. I mean, when you build a bridge, there's definitely a transportation component to it. So we'll take a look at it.
So even then, we'd still be limited. We don't have the ability to bond any of these big flood control projects. So even when it comes down to it, you're going to have, say, 500,000 you can allocate towards a project countywide.
Correct.
Which isn't a lot.
Not in these size of projects.
So we won't be able to do any of these Ephram Canyon projects, or right?
Correct. Correct, Mr. President.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, well, go ahead.
Just one more question now. Thank you very much. They completed the project there on Santa Cruz. What is it?
Nogalitos?
Nogalitos, yeah. Nogalitos there and Perkins and all that turned out very, very nice. Now, the money there came from what, the barrio, what was it? Colonia grant, right?
Correct.
Do any of these other projects qualify for a Colonia grant?
That project qualified under the wastewater category, and we had to income qualify that area. I suspect that on either one, I think you could income qualify because they would be the residents that would be affected by the improvements. It's possible, yeah.
Especially Dr. Verona's neighborhood, maybe could qualify.
I guess the last question I have is I know Nat Bank works on projects like this, and working especially if we could maybe get together with my counterparts in Nogales, Sonora, and maybe get a team to visit them with Dr. Felix and myself and the counterparts going and seeing that bank. Is that a possibility that they might release some funding on?
Right, they've gone through some reorganization with the new administration. We've had a phone conference with to reconnect so that we can schedule something to go visit them, include some of these projects.
Mayor, that's a perfect segue to what I was going to tell you. The council is these costs that you're seeing for all the projects could be greatly reduced if we were able to construct something in Mexico. There's a lot of hurdles right now, but you could build something and have just because they're a friendly federal agency, IBWC maintain them. If we could construct, it would reduce by 80 to 70% some of these costs. Specifically, Ephram Canyon, they could use it as a recharge basins. And those canyons lend themselves to that type of. So that's perfect.
So we'll look into that and keep you posted also on. Yes, Councilman.
Just a couple final questions, just to get an idea of what $637,000 a year. What does that get you in terms of bonding? How much was the project cost for that bridge? Just so.
We borrowed $9 million.
So that'll cover you about $9 million. So, how soon before the debt is retired on that?
Pass it on.
Councilman Sarah, I believe that's 20. We did so many right at once. You don't remember? 2026.
So not too far off. So at that time, we could probably start looking at a big project like Ephram Canyon towards the end of that decade.
If I may, Mr. Lucero, members of the council, the other year I ran the intellectual exercise of applying for grant funds for the Ephram Canyon project. It was actually scored as one of the top 3 projects in the state of Arizona for the hazard mitigation funding, which is a 25% match. That program, assuming that it would have gone forward and actually received the grant award, you would have 3 years to raise up your match, which can be cash or in kind. And that 3-year clock wouldn't start until the project actually had all of its permits, which, based on federal permitting processes, could take up to 2 years. So you could have up to 5 years to develop the match for that project. Unfortunately, that year there was a major flood event back east, and the federal government swept all those funds. So whether or not that would have gone forward, we don't know. But the project was very highly thought of on the state level as well. So.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. That's good that you're all right. And did you want to mention anything on the possibility of the
Yes, in our Mayor, Council, in our phone conversation 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Interim project, more so the impact of the water in Mexico. So that's one of the projects on the table for discussion. We were there last February, the mayor and I, as the council, and we brought up a request for some funding. And with the reorganization, they kind of dropped the ball and connected just last 2 weeks ago and said, we're going to get back on track. But it is a dual analysis of what impact waters in Nogales, Sonora have on ours, so that they're they're insightful in wanting to do something bi-nationally, not just one or the other.
These are the other projects that we're working in the city. If you guys have any questions on any of them.
Well,
Just to go through them very quickly, Baffert Basin is sort of a capstone type of project. It would be using the fields there just north of Baffert. When we looked at a feasibility study, if we do Mariposa, Ephram Canyon, and then do the Baffert Basin, which would be a 40-acre basin, basically from Baffert Drive northwards in the city of Nogales, the Nogales Wash would not leave its channel. The capacity improvements along Western Avenue is something we've been looking at in terms of trying to get the water back into the channel once it breaks out. One of the big problems along Western Avenue is that once the water does get out, especially by Leyva Bridge, it cannot get back into the channel. So looking at doing projects, drain projects, to try to figure out how to get that water back into the channel. The Polidore Golf Course Mitigation Bank project is the idea of basically reestablishing the wetlands that used to be there before Polidore was constructed, and maybe doing it as a mitigation bank so that people who are doing projects elsewhere pay us to put in the wetlands. The Nogales Wash Concrete Bank rehabilitation is basically would look at what is it going to take to actually fix the concrete line section of the channel to make that stable. That channel section is closing in on 80 years old and is well outlived its normal life. And then 919 corridor mitigation study touches in the city in terms of, we're looking at some stuff there off of Bodega Drive, and one of the tributaries that leads into that actually comes out of the Meadow Hills area, and so it might have an effect on the Meadow Hills area.
Any other questions, Council? Or? Yes,
I just want to make a comment. Just, Dr. Felix and Mrs. St. John, you know, this is very fruitful discussion here. If we could just have more of these getting along together, working together, moving the community forward together would be so much help. We could just work together. And we're a small community. Let's keep this going. I compliment to both of you for being here, for working together. I know you've had a lot of preliminary meetings before this, but keep up the good work that you're doing and everything, and don't let a former county manager intimidate you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm looking out for the city, Doctor. Looking out for the city.
For the children.
Does that conclude the report?
Zephyr? Good job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is John. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. That was a great presentation. Thank you. Now we're done with no, we're not done with the presentations. We actually want to get in between the presentation here and the next discussion item. A few words before we go into the discussion item from the folks that are kind of in charge of the Charles Mingus, Mr. Roberto Posey, and anybody else. Did you have something to say before we go into the discussion? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle, Councilman. I'm Robert Linedo, and I'm the treasurer of the Santa Cruz Advocate for the Arts, better known as the Mingus Project. I'm accompanied here by other board members, and as you know, a number of years ago, the city apportioned a parcel of land that is actually cemetery land for us to be able to construct a memorial commemorating the birth of Charles Mingus in Nogales, Arizona. If you're not familiar with Mr. Mingus, he was one of the premier jazz bassists during the 1940s through the 1970s. He passed away in Cuernavaca in 1979, and he's buried there. But we have expended a lot of time and money on the project. As you drive by at the corner of Western Avenue and Bejarano, you can see it there. And we would like the city to formally dedicate that and take it into its parks and recreations facilities. The reason for this is because right now really it's in limbo. We have, as I said, we have put some money into it, considerable for us, a small kind of organization, and we would like the city to help us. We've presented a landscaping plan that isn't very elaborate, but we want this to continue as a joint project with the city and our organization in continued improvement of it. That would include some artwork and, as I said, the landscaping. We annually have a music festival that commemorates Mr. Mingus. We feel that this could be an excellent draw for the city as a cultural event, tying it in with some of the other Santa Cruz County events, such as the Two-Back Arts Festival, to our neighbor in the north, the Tucson Jazz Festival, which Ms. Irving heads up, and we feel that this would be a very boon for the city. So the request is that the city officially dedicate that as the Charles Mingus Memorial Park and take it into its bosom, if you will, under the purview of the Parks and Recreations Department. And Ms. Posey has some other comments that will add to this request.
Thank you, Robert. Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Welcome.
members of the council, I am Faith Posey, and making Mingus Park part of the Parks and Recreation Department officially brings it into the Parks Department as possibly the first cultural park in the city of Nogales, a step expansion and possibly step forward. And it will join a host of sports parks and playgrounds. So this is something somewhat different. It is, since the city already owns the property, it's just a matter of changing the jurisdiction to the Parks Department for maintenance and supervision. We have put in electric, and it is wired for performances. And the Santa Cruz Advocates for the Arts has been around for about 10 years, and we probably won't go away. We would be more than happy to work with the city and the Parks Department to continue, the development of this park. We have some great ideas and some other possibilities of tying in heritage of other African Americans to a portion of this. And making Mingus Park part of the Parks and Recreation Department will be a tribute to one more remarkable Nogalian. Thank you. And I also would like to let you know we have our Mingus Music Festival in the park on April 21st, beginning at 11 a.m. with participation from local performers and some visiting performers. We'd like to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, for that invitation also. Again, we'll go ahead now and go into, yes, go ahead, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for your presentations. Mr. Leader, thank you for your presentation. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to look to negotiate an agreement for the rededication of the Charles Mingus Park with the Charles Mingus Committee and make a final recommendation to the mayor and council for our next meeting.
Second.
All right, and I guess it's open for discussion or comments, anything else? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously. And again, that takes care of 8. Thank you so much. And we'll have Dr. Freddy get back to us on that. Thank you so much. We'll go to B, discussion and possible action on appointing an interim city attorney. Yes, Councilman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to, basically stabilize everything with the city. Need to get everything back into a situation where everybody can be working together, and that will take a little time. But I think we can do it faster if we've got people there that have been there before, and have got the office running well. And so I would like to nominate Mr. Joe Machado again for a city attorney.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Open for discussion.
Mr.
Yes,
Mayor?
Councilman, or
who did you call him?
There's no possibility. Did you call him in there?
Well, it was that both of you kind of went out.
Okay, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
But
go ahead.
Thank you, guys. There is no way I would consider Joe Machado as our city attorney. I wish I could feel at liberty right now to say all the things I would want to say, but there's no way I would reconsider that man for our attorney.
Okay, is that?
And that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, all right. So, Councilman Barona, you have something to say?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Here's Mr. Massey, maybe you can help me a little here. I don't want to go beyond any kind of an appointment for a city attorney beyond the end of December. Okay. If the mayor and council agrees to the proposal that we asked the people of Nogales to consider taking the city attorney and the city clerk and putting it under the auspices of the city manager, and that passes, well, that means that decision will be made by the city manager. Correct, Mr. Massey?
Correct.
Okay. If that fails, then it would come back to us, and then there will be a new council at that time. It might be the same individuals, but it's a new council that can decide, do we want to go out? What are the requirements? How are we going to advertise or do? I realize Councilman Henesian brings up the point of stability. I understand your point, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
But I don't want, I want to make sure that we don't go on beyond the end of December. And I don't want this to be a continuation after. I see Mr. Councilman Henesian's point. I don't want Mr. Machado to be considered if this motion passes, and I'll make some amendments to this main motion, but I don't want him to be considered. There would have to be an agreement that Mr. Machado would agree that he would not be a candidate after December for any reason, whether it be an appointment by the city manager or it be an appointment by the mayor and council. He could not apply any reason. Now, I see the point, and this is the problem that I mentioned about putting it under the auspices, because sometimes we do this and we have a problem. Mr. Massey, I consider you extremely competent individual here. He's done legal work for us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown.
And I know that a former student of mine, Luis Parra, is interested in the position. I don't know. I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth, but this is the predicament. Now, do we need somebody temporarily to help us here to make sure, especially with the IOI, yeah, yes, we do. I just want to make sure, Councilman Hennesyan, the only way I can support this is it can only be till the end of December, see what the people want, and he cannot be a candidate after that, and he has to agree on that. I think that there's other people that we should open this up and get the most required person on that. So, I just don't want to be put in positions like this every 30 to 40 days that we're constantly going over and over the same thing again like this.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
I think that's very reasonable from Councilman Varona. I agree that whoever comes in is just coming in to stabilize the situation, get through the IOI, bring back some semblance of, and that's why I have the other agenda item here, a code of conduct. Just bring everybody here so that everybody here can understand that we are moving forward. And I agree, whoever is naming Mr. Machado as the interim city attorney would only be till the 31st of December. And he would have to agree, I agree with that would be it. He would not go past the 31st of December, nor would apply. Either way, whether it's Dr. Felix putting him in or us, right? And in the meantime, we would have time to go ahead and look for a city attorney, go ahead and put that out so that other people can apply, knowing that he was not going to be applying, right? And that would give us, which he has given before, some time to go ahead and for us to decide, or Dr. Felix to decide, that we have someone else that will be coming in, right? And I think that's very reasonable from Dr. Verona, and I would tend to agree. That's fine. That there would only be a 8-9 month job, and then we're looking at somebody else to lead us into the future as the city attorney.
So, Councilman Hennesyan, do you agree to a friendly amendment then of your motion? Because
Yes,
that's what I kind of, and then Councilman Diaz, do you agree to that for your second?
Yes, I do. While I agree here with my colleagues, we do need stability here. We need to bring stability, and we need somebody to bring everybody together and all work together. All of staff, Dr. Felix, Mr. Massey, all of us. We need that stability here, and what I would like is if whoever gets named interim right now, a couple of months down the road, we should start the recruitment process for a new city attorney, like right away, and maybe that person can take over January 1st as a city attorney if he's hired as a city attorney. So include that there's going to be a recruitment process starting right away to look for a new city attorney, and he could come in maybe 3 months before December, or before the expiration of the term, if Mr. Machado gets elected here, and he could take that person under his wing, show him what has to be done, and move forward. And besides, Mr. Machado is working for the city right now on the IOI. He's currently an employee of the city working on the IOI. So.
Okay, I think you had your hand up, Ms. Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mayor, I do. You know, 3 years ago, I didn't want Joe Machado. I went along with it to give him an opportunity because some people wanted it. You want to come into an administration, you want to get along. I've known this man for a while, but I didn't want him. And you know that very well, Mayor. But I gave him an opportunity. All I saw from him is divisiveness and undermining. Now, there's no way I'm going to finish off the year with a person like that. And I voted already twice to get this man out of here. And it was successful. And people went along with that simply because of that. I've seen his undermining and divisiveness. We don't need a person like that. And to bring him on again, it's almost like a slap in our face. There's other good men. I know about Luis Parra. He's a good man. I'm willing to go with him. Mark Williams is another good man that was considered. And then I'll tell you one thing. You know, we've come up with our point for some good people. Nobody's come around with us. We've considered your people. I went along with it. I went along with that for 3 years, and I didn't want that man here. But I was willing to work with him. And going to your code of conduct, I think I've always stayed within those boundaries. I've been in politics for over 12 years. And I don't think I need a code of conduct on how to behave and how to talk. As a matter of fact, we've had people in the council where we need feedback to make decisions, whether they're good or bad. But we need to hear from you. And sometimes we don't hear. I don't think I need a code of ethics to tell me how to speak and how to speak my mind, especially with so many years in the council and in education. Again, I do want to acknowledge that I'm totally against this man coming back.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
You know, luckily we're seven. We're 7 people that are going to vote on this. And there's always difference of opinions. As far as I can see, Mr. Machado has always brought stability. I do not see anywhere where he was decided.
That's your opinion, Councilman.
Well, that's why I said, luckily we're 7 here.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And everybody can have their own opinion. But as far as I can see, and I've dealt with many attorneys, in fact, at one time, Mr. Mayor, you said that he was one of the best attorneys in the state. And that was said. And I think he's done a tremendous job in everything that has to do with the legal department. So right now, and one of the strong points is that we need somebody to come in, stabilize the whole situation as it is. It got out of control, right? We need somebody to do it, and the easiest deal is let's put him back in. Let's go ahead and get him stabilize everything. After that, December 31st rolls around. There's qualified people. Mr. Masick is very qualified, or we can get other people that wants to become the city attorney. But we need to get it going now. We need to settle down. We need to start working for the city of Nogales. We need to stop fighting. We just went through a month and a half or 2 months of a complete disorderly situation, and we need to go ahead and stabilize this whole deal. And there's more to come. I'm sure there's more problems to come. So we need to get it stabilized. Let's finish the year getting everything done the way we're supposed to do it, and let's everybody relax. I'm sure we had no problems before with him here, so I'm sure we can do it again.
Yes,
Mr. Mayor, do you think that bringing a man where I've already voted twice against him brings back stability? Do you see me stay? No,
you're one
do you,
vote.
no, wait, hey, let me finish.
Well, I'm serious.
Do you see me? Do you see me stabilized? Do you see me really calm and controlled?
You could.
You could. Well, no, I'm just saying, Councilman. The answer is no.
You're one vote.
No, that's right. It is one vote. But I'm telling you that you haven't respected my vote. Because on 2 previous times, I voted no for him. And it could have been 3, and it could have been no for 3 years. Yet, I gave that man an opportunity to come and do that. But you know, you're not listening to me. I said in 3 years, he has brought divisiveness.
I never saw it.
And
I've never seen it.
Because you weren't here the
maybe
2 years.
Maybe you see it. Maybe you speak
you
to
weren't
different
you
people.
weren't here the 2 years that I was.
I was here much longer than you are.
Yes, are you going to let me talk?
No, we're just discussing it, but you're coming up with
Councilman
your
Henesian,
opinion.
the Vice Mayor has the floor. Let him
You're
finish.
right. It's my opinion.
Right, that's one opinion.
Again,
Right.
let him finish.
It is. It's my opinion of 2 years that I worked with him, and I saw that. But see, you're not listening to me. That's your problem, that you're not listening. What you see right now is instability, because you're not respecting my vote on 2 previous occasions on that
That has nothing
man.
to do. I have no idea what you're
Well,
talking about.
of course you
We
don't.
have no idea. I mean, if you wanted to vote no, it's fine with me. I have no problems with that.
Okay.
If I want to vote yes,
Thank you,
that should be no problem with
Councilman.
you.
You know, this time we'll put it to a vote, but we have something by Councilman
Maldonado.
I don't know whether to say George or Maldonado.
Councilman Barona?
You know, exactly what we don't want. You know, basically, we're here to try to help the community, to try to establish us ourselves. I get along with everybody. The calmest guy in probably Nogales. I've heard good and bad, but I take it as it is. I like to, you know, the other name has come about. You know, Mr. Luis Parra has been mentioned by all seven of us as a good man, as a possible candidate. You know, some of us work with Mr. Machado, good ways, bad ways, but I know Mr. Machado, and I know he's also done some good things, especially with the IOI. Basically, you know, I think the middleman right now, in my mind, has to be to make a motion also to bring in Mr. Parra.
Why don't we finish on Mr. Machado? I don't know, but go ahead, Councilman. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take the floor. Go ahead.
I'd like to see if I could put a motion to bring Mr. Parra.
I think procedurally, Councilman Maldonado, there's a motion that's been seconded, so there's usually the procedure is vote on that motion, and if that doesn't carry, then a second motion can be entertained.
Do you release the floor? Yes, Councilman.
I guess I would echo Councilmember Maldonado's position. I would rather see us vote unanimously for an individual as opposed to have a split vote, because that's not gonna bring harmony or stability. It's just gonna continue to exacerbate the situation. So I'd much rather support an individual that we all could support as opposed to having a split council.
I agree.
And that's all I have to say, Mayor.
And I guess, you know, I have supported, I'll say, Mr. Machado in the past. He's done good work in some areas. He's failed us in some other areas. But it's like when you have a great car that gives you a great service and you can use it for 10 good years, but comes a time when it starts failing you, you have to trade it in. You have to let go. It was a good car. It was a time at the moment. And as far as the IOI goes, you know, he's not working for the city as part of the staff just for that single purpose. He's been contracted to represent us for the appeals. Now, as far as bringing in unity, no. He brought a lot of division. That's true. There was a lot of division that was caused because when I supported him, I was hurt to see that he would not give the right legal advice to a certain group of the council when he was supposed to represent all of us. He would twist things around unfairly, and that's when I realized there's a problem here, because we still have to get the whole council has to get the right legal advice, not just a certain group. And those were some of the things that started failing when we had when we didn't renew the contract on former city manager Rivera. Him and Mr. Kissinger were supposed to give a presentation to a lot of people that had come from far away on the IOI, and neither one of them supposedly could give that presentation. Yet the city paid them to do that presentation. Mr. Rivera allowed them the time to get all the information. They were the ones that were supposed to give that presentation. Mr. Rivera was just going to kind of stand in, but that wasn't given. So that showed me, again, that Mr. Machado was not qualified, and not even on the IOI, because if he couldn't even stand up for that moment for the city to represent us, then, you know, that's where I really started seeing his sense of failure.
That was when, right before that meeting, Mr. Machado was fired.
No, sir.
So he
No,
wasn't
sir. He was here he wasn't fired till after we did negotiate the new the contract for Mr. Rivera. And that night in that meeting, him and Mr. Kissinger were supposed to give a presentation about the IOI to individuals. We had even delegates from congressional seats come down for that. It was supposed to be a very informative presentation, and we failed. We failed everyone because those two individuals did not stand up when they should have. And Mr. Machado had done all we paid him to do all the legal groundwork, and he just dropped the ball on all of us.
Mayor,
So
I'll call for a question on that.
That doesn't bring unity to us. That doesn't bring confidence to us. We need somebody that will represent all of us. And the other thing that we've been working more and more with Mexico, you know, on a regular basis. And when I start asking him about issues, about relationships, he had no background on that. You know, it'd be nice if we could get somebody with a little international law behind it.
Mayor, call for the question on that.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we've had enough discussion.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not getting anywhere. So we're going to vote to approve Mr. Machado coming back till the end of the year. Is that the motion?
That's the motion with like Dr. Verona said, with stipulations that he would not run again, or again be part of the legal team for the city of Nogales once December 31st comes in.
Okay. So we'll start with a roll call vote with me, Ms. Robinson. Go down the line, and I vote not to approve Mr. Machado coming back. I vote nay.
Mr. Maldonado?
Nay.
Mr. Quintero?
Nay.
Mr. Rojas?
Nay.
Mr. Barona?
Aye.
Mr. Genesian?
Aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Aye.
Okay, so
Motion.
the motion has been defeated by a 4-3 vote,
Yes, sir.
and we still have the take action on appointing an interim city attorney, and I don't know, I'd go ahead, Mr. Maldonado.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Luis Parra.
Okay, do we have a second? We have a second. Open for discussion?
Okay, this. Oh, all right. I
Yes,
thought you
Mr.
wanted
Parra,
to say something.
go ahead if you want to.
Well, he doesn't
We
want to
want-
say anything. He doesn't want to say anything. He's
Okay.
up there in case we have.
Well, we'd like to first know, would you be willing to represent the city of Nogales?
I am married.
Okay, thank you. I know you've applied in the past, and so, you know, we're honored to make this motion because of the way you've worked in the community, and I believe that you're also a good candidate.
To that end, Mayor Dolan, I think what I'd like to do is provide each one of the council members with my resume as well as a letter. Come on, thanks, council.
Huh?
Todavía?
Yeah. Can I ask you for a 5-minute break, please?
You want to take a 5-minute
Yeah,
break?
please.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and recess. We're going to leave it at discussion. Sorry, Mr. Parra.
It's not a problem at all. I
Our
completely
councilman
understand.
has been
Thank you.
ailing a little bit here the last week, and we're going to give him a few minutes to go ahead and kind of regroup.
Pass that on, please.
They don't want to share, Luis.
That would give us time to, yeah, that helps us to kind of look at your resume a little.
get to it, man. Let's just get the control to that.
That's what's wrong when we hang around with each other. Everybody knows when they're not feeling right. Where are you going? Everybody knows. That's what's bad about this. I'm on my own. Marta, llévatelo ya por favor.
Are we all back? Okay, all right, seems like we're all back again. I go ahead and call this meeting back to order, and we left off on the discussion on Mr. Parra representing the city of Nogales as interim city attorney, and this moment he has given us some of his background information from his resume to his personal interest on this position. So I guess we're open for any comments or yes, Councilman Lucero.
Thank you, Mayor. I've worked with.
I think we need the motion and a second. I don't think we got a second.
Yes, there was a motion and a second.
There was a motion and a second.
You made the
that's
motion,
why
made the
we
second.
opened it for discussion.
Okay.
And we stayed on the discussion part. Is that correct,
Yes, sir.
Clerk Robertson? Yeah. So we're all, we've done everything procedurally correct. We're now at the point, but who made the original motion was made by Mr. Maldonado?
Was second by Mr.
Mr. Lucero. Okay.
The only thing I was going to say, Mayor, is that I worked with Luis both when he was in private practice and when he worked with the county attorney's office, and I find him to be extremely intelligent, very active in the community, fellow Lion member, and I think he'd make a great interim, would bring harmony to the group, and the only negative comment is he graduated from ASU Law School. So other than that, I would say he's exceptional.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Just for the record, Mr. Parra is a former wrestler of mine back in the day. I really enjoyed having him as, he's a wrestler, man. He's not going to back down for you, Mr. Councilman. He'll take you on. I guarantee it. So he's got my full support.
I didn't realize you were that young.
Huh?
I didn't realize you were that young, folks.
Well, he's got my full support.
Yes, Councilman.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Parra is a former student of mine, a Nogales High School graduate, which is the most important thing to me. I know he went to bachelor's degree and he got his Juris Doctor degree, but I will say something about Mr. Parra. He worked his way through school on his own. He didn't have the finances at his home. He did it on his own. I know that he's a veteran. Thank you for your service, Mr. Parra.
Yes, thank you.
And I've seen him as he's grown up on Nogales High School campus and all the sports, athletics. He was a fine student athlete. I worked with him, being on the planning and zoning when he took care of civil litigation and represented the Santa Cruz County Planning and Zoning Commission. He works, as Councilman Lucero says, a lot of volunteer work with the Nogales Noon Lions Club. I am very supportive of Mr. Parra. He will bring a lot of legal intellectualism to this mayor and council. He's a fair person. He understands that he works for 7 people, 7 individuals.
Not one, 7.
And I am supportive of the motion. I just hope, Mr. Parra, that you have good relationship with our city manager, that you work together with your staff, you have a competent legal staff there. I've seen how you work, so I know that's going to happen. So I am supportive of Mr. Parra.
Thank you, Councilman Barona. Councilman
Mayor, thank you. Mr. Parra, also, I mean, you know, I'm knowing you and I consider you a friend. I just have a couple of questions here. First of all, you're a very busy lawyer. How are you going to fit the city into that? You know, I know that you do immigration law. I know you do, we were discussing that the other day, that you do a lot of federal law up in Tucson, and that you have a construction company up in Tucson, right? How are you going to be able to fit in the city? And if I'd had a chance to talk to you, I would have mentioned these things. How are you going to fit in the city? And also, how are you going to fit in the city when you haven't had municipal law as a outside that you were, I think, for 6 months or something like that, or a year, or when you first came out of law school, when you were here with the city, that you had some time as city attorney. But, you know, basically requires seven years of municipal law is the way the job description is, right? Again, my question is, and again, I know that, you know, we get along well, that's not the problem. I just have these questions about whether you can do it with your busy schedule, right? I mean, you know, and I could understand it if you were going to go ahead and say, well, I'm going to drop something else, but I can't think that you would be dropping your immigration law or drop your federal law or eliminate your construction or eliminate the family. I don't think you're going to do any of those, right? So that's just my question. And if you want to remark to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Anesi and Mr. Mayor. All very fair questions, very pertinent questions, and I understand that each one of you may have your doubts with regards to my interest in the position and also how you know, why I'm here. So allow me the opportunity to answer your questions. First of all, Councilman Anesi. I will. Let me just say, at one point, I recall going back when I first started working for city government, which began with the city of Tucson, right after my graduation from the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law at ASU, 1999. So to answer your questions with regards to the 7 years, I worked for city government and county government as the chief civil deputy at Santa Cruz County through 2008. So those are the 7 years that you mentioned with regards to government experience. I took on the role as chief civil deputy at Santa Cruz County. It was a very challenging role, representing the Planning and Zoning Commission. But suffice to say that I do believe that I have the experience to be able to provide sound legal advice to this honorable mayor and council. With regards to the construction company that I am a silent partner now in, I'm no longer working for that company at all. I'm a silent partner in that company, and there's a CEO running the company. As with anybody else, I'm sure they have investments that are investments that are run by other companies. So to answer your question with regards to the construction company, I'm no longer involved on a day-to-day basis with that company. I'm a silent partner and investor, if you will. With regards to my practice, which is based here in the city of Nogales, and I felt that I've worked and helped many people immigrate to this country, obtain citizenship in this country, and I think it's been a valuable thing to residents of the city of Nogales. and ambos Nogales for that matter. I'm very proud of the work that I've done over the course of the last 10 years in that role. This is a very serious and a very challenging thing for me personally, from a professional standpoint. You know, offering up my legal services to the city of Nogales, and I say that because I'm in essence putting my own interests aside in continuing to grow my law firm here in Nogales, Arizona. A law firm that has been very profitable for me in the course of the last 10 years. But I was once taught by a gentleman who's sitting right to your right, above everything, and his father, I'm sure, taught him that, is civic virtue. Putting your own interests aside for the well-being of others. My parents live in the city. I have family who live in the city. I have nephews who are growing up in the city. My kids grew up in the city. I really want to help the city move forward. When I read earlier today the quote from Martin Luther King, I really believe in that quote. I believe in civic virtue. I'm a young man. I think I'm a young man. I'm 47 years old, but I think I can contribute something to the city at this point in my career that my kids will be proud of. That my grandfather was born in this city in 1889, 4 years before it became a city, and I'm very proud of that fact. So, let me just finish by, let me say, last year I provided a letter. This is on February 12, 2017. The reason I handed this letter is so that the mayor and council were aware of the fact that at one point the city of Nogales opened up the city attorney position for letters of interest and for interviews. Joe Machado was a city attorney. It looked like he wanted to walk away from the job or complete his service to the city. The then city manager Carlos Rivera went to Mr. Martin Piñon, who no longer works for the Human Resources Department, and asked him to put it out. I did the right thing. I submitted a letter of interest. I submitted my resume. That was never provided to the mayor and council. I was very disappointed over that. But nonetheless, I'm back again because of the interest I have in serving. So I want to thank each one of you for the opportunity to serve. And I want to commend each one of you as well for serving our border community with civic virtue as well. I know you run a business, Mr. Hanesian. You've done that for years. I commend you for that. You've put your own interests aside for the well-being of the city. You've gone to bat for the city. There's an old quote, about getting in the field, getting in the field of battle. And I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but you've done that, and each one of you have done that. In these challenging times where border issues are of national interest, I think it's very important that this whole city, as well as the departments, including the legal services department, that we come together and that we're able to provide sound legal advice to a unified mayor and council. And I would hope that would be the framework that I would be working in. About 15 years ago, I served the city in the same capacity as what is now before the mayor and council on an interim basis. At the time, I moved on to serve as a chief civil deputy in Santa Cruz County. I enjoyed serving the residents of Santa Cruz County in that role. I'm now willing to serve again because I believe that each member of this council and the mayor truly have the best interests of this noble city in mind. And I really mean it. Each one of you bring a different thing, a different background, whether it's being a businessmen, educators, entrepreneurs, people that have been working for the main industry for generations now, and of course people who have served the public honorably in a role with federal government. I know each one of you, and I think again that each one of you brings something to the table and want to improve the city. Just want to tell you that I share your interests. My role is to objectively provide sound legal advice to all members of the council and the mayor. To objectively provide sound legal advice to all members of this council and mayor and the respective department heads. In doing so, my hope is that I will assist each of you as your legal advisor as you seek to move our city forward in a positive direction. I believe we owe it to our visionary founders, founded this city 125 years ago. I believe that we owe it to our war heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice and who proudly claimed to be Nogalians. So that's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Mayor, call for the question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Parra. Councilman Diaz, please.
I've known Mr. Parra for many years, and as a fellow veteran and all that, I commend Mr. Parra for stepping up to the plate and coming up to do the right thing for Nogales, and being active in unifying the mayor and council, because we do need to be unified. And being a veteran, he knows about teamwork, and teamwork wins wars, and teamwork can help move Nogales forward. So it's very necessary that we work together as a team, and we help Mr. Parra succeed and not hinder him. We all will be working together. You will be working with Dr. Felix, Mr. Massey, and everybody here. So, and I know you can do it because you have that personality that helps open doors for you. And with your personality, you're going to open doors for Nogales. So, I wish you a lot of success, and because your success will be success for Nogales. So, and thank you for stepping up to the plate. And one question, okay, he's going to be interim. Interim is interim. So what are we going to do about a more permanent position? Is my question. But
Can we amend this legal?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure we're at that point yet, Mr. Mayor.
But that's something to think about maybe for next agenda, but we need to if everything works out, if the terms, whatever terms you guys are going to work out. I don't know if you have or not. If you worked out any terms with Dr. Felix as far as your working conditions, your pay and all that. So
I want to be
things that have to be addressed. No?
Councilman Diaz, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to be very respectful of the comments that Councilman Hanessian had with respect to stability and keeping in mind that this is an election year, keeping in mind that you all, even though I'm putting this in front of you and that I've known I want to be very respectful of whatever is is a fit for the city. Of course, I also, as with anything, there's quid pro quo, and as with anything, you want it to be a situation where it's favorable to both parties. I would respectfully request that, bearing in mind the comments by Councilman Hennessy, I would respectfully request to be considered on an interim basis for a year. This council and this mayor and council has every right, and you may at some point consider me for a permanent position, but at this point I would respectfully request, and I'm doing this also to be frank, bearing in mind what has gone on. I'll say Mr. Williams is present in the chamber, and I want to thank you for stepping up as well when you did, Mr. Williams. I think that you wanted to perhaps help the city, and that's to be commended. But I want to say that a year on an interim basis covers obviously a year that is going to be the election year, and a new council comes on board. If a new council that perhaps doesn't have the same doesn't believe the same things that you all have voiced here this evening, and so perhaps there's a change. But I would like the opportunity to be on an interim status, and again, if you see fit to put me on a permanent status next month, then so be it. But I would ask that whatever, and I think there is a motion and a second, but whatever motion or whatever is considered at this point by the proponents of the motion and the second, that it be a year. And quite frankly, I want to be completely transparent with the community of the city of Nogales, and I'm considering a salary of, and I guess I don't want to I want to voice what I believe should be fair terms.
I think, Mr. Parra, I think the salary and all that, I think best discussed with Dr. Felix, right? I mean, we basically have a guideline. It's been established pretty much. So before you bring anything up, I would say I think it'd be best you discuss it.
Very well. Thank you, Councilman.
Has been, I think I see his hand getting tired.
My hand was up for 15 minutes, but I figured I might just start jumping in and talking.
He was up.
He was up.
I'm actually getting, yes, I'm getting blinded by that red pen in his hand already. So.
That was just going to be my recommendation, Mayor, that we call that we vote on this and ask that Dr. Felix negotiate the terms and conditions of a contract and bring it back to Mayor and Council as soon as possible for us to ratify.
Yes, Councilman Arona.
Well, just so I concur, but I would like to amend the main motion to authorize the city manager to offer Luis Fernando Parra a contract for a period of 12 months beginning April the 15th as the city attorney. And in the contract, if the council, this is just if the council agrees to submit to the voters that the city attorney fall under the city manager, that at that time, if it passes by the voters, then at that time, it will be a decision on January the 1st of the city manager whether he is to stay or not. That wording has to be in there. And I think we can clear up the rest with Dr. Felix doing that. I just don't know what's going to happen with that when Mr. Massey brings it. It's just a point of clarification so we don't.
Well, so that's a motion to amend the main motion. The motion was made by Councilman Maldonado and seconded by Councilman Lucero. So I guess the first is, do you agree to a friendly amendment, or do we want to get a second on this amendment and vote on that?
Well, I want to ask another legal question that, aside from whatever happens, changing the charter or proposition or whatever it is, what would take precedent? If we gave them a year, would that be honored legally? And then afterwards,
Right.
the law kicks, the new ruling kicks in.
What I understand Councilman Barona's motion to amend is that, yeah, it would be a year, but subject to being conditioned if the vote, if that even passes council to go to the voters, and if the voters pass. So basically, there's like two conditions there that may happen.
I don't like complications. I prefer if we gave a year, that's honored, regardless of what happens. After the year, then the new ruling takes effect. That's what I'd like to now.
Mayor, let's make it simple. Let's just see what happens. We'll take it on. Let's make it simple. Let's offer him city attorney for a period of 1 year, starting April the 15th.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Okay.
Is there a friendly amendment, or is there a
No,
second?
well, I heard what you just said. Would you withdrawing your previous motion to amend?
But this other thing that I agreed, is that a friendly amendment, or
I
do I have
accept.
to make?
I accept.
Okay, so then.
Okay,
right.
so it's accepted.
It's just a motion
It's
for a
accepted
year.
by the motion.
You understand?
You okay by the 15th?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
George, thank you.
Okay, so now we're I guess tuned in to the main motion, and then
Clarification, the second didn't agree, so.
To a year?
But-
What,
now and
I would rather have the terms and conditions of a complete contract spelled out that we can all see and vote on, as opposed to just the term.
Okay, I make a motion to amend the main motion to offer Fernando Para.
and still keeping your amendment?
Yes,
or?
yes, that's the same one. Since he doesn't agree, I'll make that as to a formal amended motion to the main motion.
To include Councilman Lucero's? Is that what you're?
No.
No.
right, I think the understanding will be that a contract is going to be negotiated and brought back, but what the motion is that the contract would be for a term of 1 year, starting April 15th.
April the 15th, as city attorney.
As city attorney. Is there a second on that motion to amend?
Second.
Not interim.
Not interim. He's a city attorney.
City attorney. Okay.
There's a second.
And
There's
we have a second.
So we have to have a motion, or a vote on the motion, on the amended motion. The motion to amend.
Okay, so we need to vote on.
No more discussion.
No
Let's
more.
just vote.
Let's
on
vote
the
on.
motion.
But this vote is on the amendment.
On the amended motion.
Correct. Then we get to the main motion.
Correct.
Okay. So, all those in favor of the amended motion, approving the amended motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Okay, 1 nay. All right. So
Now we're at the
we
main
don't- now we
motion
give it
as
come back.
amended. We have to have a vote on the main motion as amended.
And that will
You
read,
understand the amendment?
and now read it so that we can all understand it. Can you give us a reading on the main motion now with the amended part of it?
Can you do that, Madam Clerk, or do you want me to?
So everybody will understand it.
Okay. The motion is to appoint Luis Fernando Parra, city attorney, for 1 year. And the negotiations will come back to council with the remaining of the terms, including compensation and any other terms that would
Effective
be
April the 15th.
effective April the 15th.
Okay, and you concur with that, Mr. Parra? So now we're ready to vote. All those in favor of approving the main motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll see you on the 15th.
All right. So thank God for Arizona State University.
Really taking that. Okay, now we go to item C, and discussion and possible action on establishing a code of conduct for the mayor and council.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I
Council.
vote to table this and bring it up at the retreat.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to table and bringing it up on the retreat, open for discussion.
Can't discuss a motion to table.
Right.
Oh,
we shouldn't.
all right, so, let's,
We have no objection to it, so.
okay, so everybody, we need to vote on it,
Well, if they withdraw by consent, it's being tabled,
Then it's
on the
okay.
understanding that it is
With
brought
the
back at
understanding
the
that we
retreat.
brought back with the
The
retreat.
council's okay with it?
Everybody is okay because we want to all get along now.
That's right. Okay,
Thank you,
good.
Mr. Lawler.
So we're gonna go ahead and table, item C. And, and put it on a future date
Right.
for that.
By acclamation, it's tabled.
Okay. Now, we go to item D. Discussion and possible action on funding roof repairs for the Boys and Girls Club. Councilman Morales?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to get together with the Boys and Girls Club, Vicky Barton, the executive director, and bring back a proposal to the mayor and council on the situation of funding the roof repairs at the Boys and
I'll
Girls Club.
second that, Mayor.
Okay, open for discussion. Seeing none, I call to the question. All those in favor?
He's got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did. I'm sorry about
Bring
that.
back proposal, or?
Yeah, to
Pay for it.
Discuss it.
how we're gonna pay and this and that, what they need
Okay.
for the May meeting, because we don't wanna get into the rainy season and everything. We wanna work together, okay? We all wanna get along. Yes,
For the
we all wanna get along.
For the children.
It's for the children.
Mr. Mayor, this is a question.
Yes, Councilman.
Have you gotten a bid already for the?
Yes.
For the roof?
Okay, Councilman Diaz.
It's right here.
Did you have more than one bid, or?
I have 4.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
That was my.
That was your bid,
my-
okay.
And the one where we have in front of us, which is Castro, that's the lowest bid? Or that-
the second lowest.
Now I got a question.
Okay, Councilman Diaz.
Wasn't Castro's Roofing going to do the housing, and then something happened and they dropped out, and that's why we're doing, who are we doing with?
Yeah, you know?
And now they're doing Doctor Construction? That happened.
Yes,
that-
I think,
We can
Housing
discuss that and bring it back.
yes, we
to
can
a
discuss
proposal.
that, but that had nothing to do with performance or anything like that?
No, they something about bonding or something like that?
Martinez,
Had a
do you have
problem
an
with
answer to
bonding?
that?
Well, we can look into all of that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and council members, I don't think that will be an absolute hurdle. We'll probably have to have some discussions on that, but yeah, the understanding is that Mr. Castro said he couldn't oppose to performance and payment bond. It was someone else. Okay.
We do have to realize, as you said, the essence of, time is of the essence.
Before.
So we can't decide to wait too long on this.
Right.
I think we'll be able to come up with a proposal.
Just to authorize him to do it, he'll get back to us.
So we're all good on then we need to vote. So call for the question. All those in favor of approving this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Saying none, motion carried unanimously. And we go to now number E, discussion on abandoning right-of-way of an undeveloped platted street, East Paseo de Este. I think we kind of discussed that in the past, but we'll go ahead and do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Second.
Second. Okay, open for discussion.
Go ahead and fill us in once.
Okay. Yes, tonight we're not asking mayor and council to approve an abandonment of an easement. What we're asking you to do is
consider the abandonment of an easement and then direct staff, if you're so inclined to abandon it. There's no action on this item, just a discussion. If you're inclined to have staff go forward and find the legal parameters on abandoning this street up in Soto subdivision, then staff will move forward. If the council comes back and says, no, this is not a good idea, don't go forward with that, then staff would drop the idea.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilman.
Yeah. The question is, I mean, the guidelines basically say that whoever owns one side of it is, or the other side, then they split it. Now, is this owned, both sides are owned by the same party?
No, sir. On this particular street up there in Calle Soto, there would be 3 interested parties. Two of them are related that are adjacent to the street, and one's, I don't know what the name of the party is because they have, I don't know what the legal term is. They don't identify themselves as a trust or something like that. Would be the third party on the street. So typically what happens when we abandon right-of-ways, you draw a line right down the middle of the street and everybody's property grows by that much of the street or the property.
The right side and the left side?
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And in your agenda packet I showed you.
Is it a street that just cannot be, we have zero intentions of continuing that street?
Correct. Where the street ends, I think the street goes a couple hundred feet and then it's a cliff. So there would be no way the city would ever reasonably build a street there.
And all the parties there have been advised on both sides?
No, they haven't.
Did they request it?
Right. One party came and requested it, and the other party, like I said, we haven't reached out to them. They have a Tucson address, but it would depend on council's intentions to whether we do.
But as long as they know what the guidelines are, what is expected, and who's going to get what, right? Doesn't come out like the last time where we're trying to eliminate an easement and it became a disaster, right?
Well, I can't predict what would happen. But
yeah. All right.
Okay. Yes, Councilman Diaz.
Is this that little area right here?
That's very small street.
And then the city has a big chunk of land back there.
20 acres.
20 acres? But there'll still be an entrance to that 20 acres, not from the city, from the other side?
That is correct, on the other side, right by the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay.
We could never build a street there.
Yeah.
It's a cliff.
It's a cliff.
To the waterfall.
Huh?
Okay, so the
waterfall.
Sure.
So I guess any other comments or discussion? Okay, seeing
Call for
none,
the question.
Call for the question. All those in favor of approving this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? None? Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll proceed with thank you.
Okay. Now we go to orders. A, consideration and possible action of order 2018-04-031, order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, to approve funding to retrain the services of a consultant firm to complete the development standard code revision as identified in the strategic plan goals, planning and zoning.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, do we have? Well, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second.
I think he's second.
Second. Okay.
I second it.
Open for discussion. Do we need planning and zoning to give us a little?
Yeah,
update?
I'd like to have an overview.
Okay. Yes, Councilman Lucero, did you have a question?
Yes, if you could, in your overview, the one question I had is when they break down the hours for each of the tasks,
Sure.
It doesn't identify who the personnel or staff members are. They're going to be providing that service, and I've usually found that they'll give you this person is going to do the work, and then when it actually comes time to do the work, it's somebody at a lower level that's doing the work. So I'd like that to be identified or cleared up as to who's actually going to be performing a lot of the work that's been identified.
Sure. And so I asked the question. They didn't provide that type of clarification in their projected estimate, but basically the projected estimate is like the highball figure. So
in the worst case scenario.
And it's not going to get any worse.
It's not going to get any worse than that. So, yeah, the idea was that they would use the planner for most of the, the mechanics of it. But essentially, for all the Prop 207 issues and things like that, the legal staff would be reviewing it.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, Councilman Barón.
I noticed that there was Mr. Dilla. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Dilla. Review committee. Who's the review committee?
So we have the Planning and Zoning Commission that has to review, and then the the Development Review Committee consists of city staff. So the Development Review Committee, as per the Development Standards Code now that we currently have, identifies members of city staff, including the city attorney's office, myself, the city engineer, the public works director, the chief of police, the fire chief. Those are all development review committee members, and essentially it's just it's a staff comprised review committee that reviews projects and or items related to the development standards code to ensure that everything is compliant with all the applicable departments.
Well, I think it falls in line with our strategic plan, Mr. Mayor, Dr. Felix. The only thing I have concerned about, we didn't plan for this financially. Where are you going to get the funds for this?
Probably have to roll it over to next year's budget.
Oh, until next. So we'll put it in for the. Was that okay with you? We're not going to do this. You won't be able to do this till July 1st.
Yeah, that's fine. As long basically, I just wanted to get this in front of you guys as soon as possible. I'd spoken with Councilman Lucero and you independently as well. I think, as well as at the last Mayor and Council retreat. And so this is I know that this is a high priority project, and really, just to give you a quick little background, the current Development Standards Code hasn't been, it was adopted in 1989, and we're in a rapidly changing world right now, and the demands, I can speak for my department, and in terms of economic development and streamlining processes and things like that being a big priority for the city, and being competitive in that way, really creating regulatory processes that ultimately facilitate that and are efficient has got to be our number one goal, and I know that that's something that you guys are pushing for. This firm I have the highest confidence in, and I've worked with them in the past. They do incredible work, and they're top guns. So they projected a 12 to 13 month completion date on it. So that's outstanding.
So you're getting the okay, Dr. Felix, to go ahead, but you're going to put this in, because this is all, we spend a lot of time talking about this in the retreat, and that's a direction that we set for you. But this isn't going to happen until after July the 1st. Okay, I'm clear.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion on this item? One more.
I
Yes.
just want to make a, it's here, it says here that total cost of 96?
That's correct.
That's estimated, or that?
That's the highball figure.
Okay.
Yeah, and as Councilman Lucero asked, essentially how's that broken down, and that's the scenario with the higher paid staff member, the attorney, doing bulk of the work. So that's the highest cost projection. They actually came in with a different percentage, and Dr. Felix and I reviewed it, and we went back to them, and we asked for some revisions to that, and they came back with a more reasonable. I mean, it's still a high figure, but for a project like this, in terms of the needs of the city, and not having really revised this Development Standards Code for 30 years, it's time.
I've worked with the principals, and they are really good, and I think they will do a great job for this city, and the sooner we get them going, the better. It'll create economic development opportunities for the city.
I concur.
Yes,
All together.
that's what we need.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you.
So I think we probably discussed enough. I'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving this order signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously. And we go to D. Thank you so much, Mr. Dillon. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council.
Thank you for bringing us up, and great work that you're doing. Continue that good work. I think Nogales is in good hands with putting these future items and working together, and hopefully we'll be able to unite with the county and have one of these days one like the one workforce program. We'll have one code for the whole community. So anyway, we'll go ahead and go to the next, and that's B. Order B, consideration and possible action of Order 2018-04-032, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, authorizing Esplendor's Home Building, LLC, to construct new public restrooms at the Nogales Little League baseball field. And I know George is on top of that.
I'll move.
No, it's Georgie's.
Well, he doesn't want to. He's being shy.
Did you want to say something?
Did you want to make a motion?
Let's make a motion. Let's get a motion to approve. Thank you. Have a second.
Second.
Open for discussion.
I really commence getting this done.
Good.
We need it.
Yes, we do.
So did he make them?
I think it's part of the end.
He made the motion.
This is for Fletcher.
No, this is Little League Park, right?
In back of War Memorial over there?
Yes, and if I recall, we got, this came from part of the money from the Tohonom, right?
I thought we had done that
yeah,
5 years ago.
Remember, we did it, and Marcel, correct me if I'm wrong, after we approved it and all that, they came back and with higher bids and all that, and then finally Marcel worked with them and got it straight, so we start building a building. Correct? Thank you.
And this park is heavily used. I mean, it's constantly with Little League. I mean, parents, everybody's out there enjoying themselves. So it's something that's needed. Yes, Councilman.
So the bid is $49,811, right? Total. That's.
Yep.
So that takes care of the grant.
I recall we got 50 from the Tohonom Nation.
Yeah, 50. Oh, that's good.
So taken care of.
Okay, so
Little League started today. Go support the kids.
all right, enjoy yourself.
For the children.
A lot of fun watching. So we have the motion and the second, and any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of approving this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously. We're going to go ahead and number 9 is not quite ready. We're going to go ahead and table number 9. Pull it out.
I'll second that.
We have a
second?
Made the motion.
You made the motion, a second. Councilman Barona made the motion. Vice Mayor Rojas.
Second.
Second.
It's not Barona.
Okay, thank you. Again, all those signify by saying aye. Aye. And
I think you.
Motion carried. Now, future agenda items. Any future agenda items? Yes, Councilman Barona. I see the red pen.
Mayor, could we have Inspector Felix report on the recycling? Okay, I'd like to know that. And also, can we have an update on the Public Works investigation? Okay, it's kind of.
Is that the side loader?
Yes, the side loader. And we were talking here with the county. I didn't want to bring it up with the county here, but you know, they finished paving on Congress Street. They paved a section of the street there on Congress Street. And it seems like we have a difference of legal opinions here. From the end of where they paved on Congress Street to Mariposa Road, that road has a lot of tourism traffic there, a lot of it. And it's making our community look bad. The city has a legal opinion that it doesn't belong to us. The county has a legal opinion that it doesn't belong to them. That's why they only paid to that portion there. And we're all looking ridiculous with that, not being taken care of by anybody. There's potholes, it's terrible. There's a lot of, so let's find out who's going to fix that thing.
Can I add to that also, Councilman? You know, that area is really trafficked by a lot of overweight trucks. that little
Yeah,
area
it does.
right there, because they drive into parks and
They park
whatnot. They come in and out. Maybe we could use between both the county and the city our overweight fees, and both of us unite. Maybe you could reach out to the county and see if, and we could do
We need a solution.
Right. I think between both of us we can get it paid.
I sure hope so.
Thank you.
No more future.
Okay, so we don't have any other, so we have yes, Councilman.
Can we put a limit on how many requests a council member can make to put on future agenda items?
We'll take that into consideration for the next meeting.
Like no more than 2?
Or we'll discuss it in the retreat.
Yeah.
Do we, I have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously, meeting over. Thank you.
None for another month.
Thank you for the note.
Unless we have a special.